Well, good morning, everyone. It's good to see you all. Hope you are well and keeping safe. I can see Anna and Tom and Nancy and Bill and uh, Marlene and Marina and Olive and Betty are all in, and Morag is all saying good morning. So, good morning, everyone. It's good to have you all here. And as part of our Sunday reflections. Friends, just a couple of announcements. You probably have noticed, morning Christine, you probably will have noticed that there was no music this Friday and there was no pub quiz coming up. And that's because we've taken a bit of a break at the moment for July. And that is going on. So just to have just be aware in August that we'll all come back together. For those of you who haven't watched, Courageous Conversations was filmed on Wednesday night. And if you'd like to see it, just head over to our YouTube page or our Facebook church page and you'll be able to see it on there. Then you'll also have noticed that Thought for the Day is come to an end for July. We're taking a break as ministers for July for Thought for the Day. And so just be aware that there won't be anything coming onto YouTube or YouTube and Facebook for that. Then David and Chrissy Smith first share a big anniversary. I forgot the number or forgot to write the number down. So happy anniversary. I think it's either Wednesday or Friday. And then I know David Smith is having a 100-year birthday on the 10th. So happy birthday, David. We'll be phoning you and 100 years, well done. Really, really well done. You might get a letter from me. It's not the same as getting a letter from the Queen, but I hope it's just as sentimental. For those who are giving financially to the church, we're grateful for that. Thank you so much for all you're doing. If you're sick at the moment, I know there's a couple of people in our community that are sick and struggling. Just know that you're in our thoughts and prayers, that if there's anything we can do, please get in contact. We're thinking about you at this time. And then also to say that at the moment, we have not opened the church for worship or for private prayer. We've decided as a management group that it's just not in the best interest at the moment of keeping everyone safe. So if anything changes with that status, we'll let you know. But for now, things are still closed. Then I have to show you now this. So from, let's see, oh, there we go. Then you'll see from, normally in the summer, we have our summer services. And what we're doing this year is we're still having our summer services, but it's going to be divided up into the different churches like that. And we're just going to have 2 services every Sunday from the different churches. You just look on the side and you'll find your date. Like, oh, I can't do it. It's all back to front. And you'll find your date and, no, there. And you'll find Abbots Hall and our dates and Linktown and Beneke and St. Bryce and the Congregational Church. I'm going to try and see if I can get it on our Facebook page and our YouTube page to run at 11 o'clock every Sunday during the summer. But if it doesn't, just head over to the relevant churches' Facebook or YouTube channels and you'll be able to catch it there. So that's the summer services over there. Good. Oh, I'm trying to get rid of it now. Doesn't always work, technology. There we go. Good. Friends. Today's service focuses on Genesis 24. And it's quite a famous section, and one I remember learning about at Sunday school when I was young. And instead of reading the Bible at this section, because it's quite a long chapter, I thought I'd retell the story. And the story starts with a great loss. The matriarch of this family, Sarah, has now died. And they believe, or the rabbis believe, that the reason she has died is that she heard about what Abraham planned on doing with Isaac in terms of sacrificing him. And so she dies. And Abraham is very old at this point. And his son Isaac doesn't have a son, or doesn't have a wife. And we all know that in order for things to progress, in terms of lineages to keep going, he has to get Isaac a wife. So he calls his most senior servant, and we don't know the servant's name in the story, and he says, what I want you to do is I want you to go back to the land from where I'm from, and I want you to find my son Isaac a wife. And the servant agrees and makes an oath, but he says, as the servant says, I'm a bit unsure on something. What happens if I get there and I can find a wife, but I can't bring her to where you are? I mean, you used to live there, and now it's quite some distance. What happens if she doesn't want to make the journey? Shall I take Isaac back to that land, and then you can do that? Then he can convince her, or he could live with her. And Abraham says to him, whatever you do, I will release you from the oath if you don't find a suitable wife and you can't bring her back. But whatever you do not take Isaac back. Don't take Isaac back to where I came from. We've moved forward. Don't go back. God has been faithful in the past. Just carry on. So the servant goes off in search of this wife. And he takes 10 camels with him. And as he's journeying, he gets to the town where he's meant to be, and he gets the camels to kneel outside of the town by a well. And he comes up with this idea, and he says to God, God, if a woman comes and I ask her for a drink, and as I ask her for a drink, she offers to water my camels too, give water to my camels, then I will know that this woman is from you. And no sooner has he prayed this, that this woman comes walking to him by the name of Rebecca. And he doesn't know this yet, but Rebecca is related to Abraham. And it's Abraham's brother's daughter. And she is a virgin in the sense that she hasn't had sex with anyone else. And this is important because this means the lineage will continue. There's no doubt that the child, if it comes from Isaac, will be from Isaac and from that lineage. So the servant says to Rebecca, would you give me some water? And she does. But then she goes a little bit further and she says, can I water your camels too? And the servant is taken aback, and he realizes that this woman is from God. So he puts some jewelry on her and it's just can't believe that this has happened. And so he goes now knowing that he has this wife, and he goes to do the hard part of convincing the family. And he arrives with Rebecca, and Rebecca's family welcomes him in. They're really excited, and he says, they asked a simple question: who sent you? I mean, you're about to take our daughter away, but who sent you? And the servant describes the whole story, and he says, Abraham sent me, but he describes this whole story. And the reason I think he describes this whole story, and the family are like, well, God's hand has definitely been in this. God's hand is definitely, take Rebecca. Obviously, this is God's will. And just before they're about to set out, Rebecca's parents mother and brother say, actually, for 10 days, we'd like to keep her, and then we'll send her on. And the servant says, please, just let me take her. Let me just take her. And so they do this very uncultural thing. They ask Rebecca what her opinion is. And Rebecca says, no, I'll go. And she goes, and as they're arriving, they find Isaac, and Isaac is wondering. He's just wondering. He's in a dwam. And he's in a field meditating, which is, it's difficult to translate the word, but meditating could be, he's just walking, praying, doesn't know because he's lost his mom. He just doesn't know where he is. And the servant tells Isaac what has happened, that he's brought him a wife. And Isaac had no clue this was happening. And not only does he bring in this wife, but they get married, and Rebecca and Isaac, well, they find love. And the story carries on that Rebecca was able to comfort him and help him get over his mother's death. It's quite a famous story, and there's a lot of questions I have about that passage, but let me first start by saying this. I'm reading this book at the moment. It's called The Only Plane in the Sky, and it's about 9/11 and what happened when the two planes flew into the towers and the Pentagon. But the way that it's written is it's written not as a narrative in the normal sense of somebody telling a story, but it's written from the words of actual people being interviewed, that they have weaved together. Whether it's firemen who were in the building and were coming out and the building came down, or it was people whose loved ones phoned them from a plane, or it is people that had meetings or were in the building when the planes hit. I mean, the stories as people are describing them are horrific. And one of the things that is amazing about this book is that it's told so well that you almost feel that you identify with the characters. I wasn't there at September 11th, but I can sort of feel like I was there in the building as it was coming down, and as the planes hit and there was that smell, they were talking about it. An interesting thing. Good storytellers, people who are good at their storytelling craft, and it is a craft, have the ability to put you in other people's shoes. They have this ability to make you empathize, or to laugh, or to understand what this character is going to. Use your imagination and put you in their shoes. And the Genesis writers are masters at this. They are brilliant writers. They are masters of tension, of putting tension into a story and you going, what is going to happen? But they're also masters of putting you in other people's shoes. And today, in today's story, I want to focus on two people that they put ourselves into. Two people that they write about, that we put ourselves into their shoes. And the first one is the servant. And this servant is a main character in the story. And he's unnamed. And I don't think it's by accident that he's unnamed, because we actually know who he is. His name is Alzer, and he's mentioned in Genesis 15 verse 2. And he was the head servant. He was the steward of the house. He was in charge of finances. He was in charge of making sure everything was running smoothly. He was the top of the top, the creme de la creme. And if Abraham didn't have a son, this servant was set to inherit everything. Not only was he going to get freedom, but he was going to get money. And we know that Abraham was quite rich. So he was set to inherit everything. But then Abraham and Sarah have a child, Isaac. And this child, changes everything. Because now the servant has things to lose. He's lost everything. In a moment, as Isaac is born, Alzer loses everything. And not only does he lose everything, he loses his status. And what I mean by that, couple of verses earlier, the writers named him, but now he becomes the unnamed servant. He's not even recognized. He goes from hero to zero in the blink of an eye. And not only that, he's gone through this huge transition. But not only that, he now has been tasked by Abraham to go find this very child that robbed him of everything, a wife, continuing the lineage, continuing what's going to happen. He will not be free. And you can imagine how humiliating it is. You can imagine he had everything and it gets taken away. Maybe some of the emotions he feels is bitterness, anger, resentment. But this servant is clever because he knows there's a loophole. If Isaac does not find a wife, can't pass on anything. The lineage dies. And so what the servant does, and it's clever, is he takes 10 camels with him. Now, it's a really arbitrary thing, but he says in this thing that the camels need to get water. Camels need on average 20 to 30 gallons of water every time they drink. What he's doing is setting an impossible task for this woman. And we all know that there's a lot of impossible tasks that men set for women. And so he sets up this task. And I wonder, as he sits there waiting for her, I wonder if he thinks, I've got this. I've got this. I wonder if he sits there also just saying, I don't know how my life turned out like this. I never saw my life going like this. Like I had everything and then I lost it. I just want to catch a break. I wonder if he stood there waiting for this woman and just saying, this is horribly unfair. And you know what? I'm going to get revenge. I'm going to get revenge. And then the next person I want to focus on is the person of Rebecca. Now, Rebecca, the name Rebecca means tied up or secure. Now, initially it was supposed to mean that she ties up men in terms of she's able to attract a man. She's very attractive, that she can pull in any man she wants. She'll get married quickly. That's the name her family gave her, someone who will be married quickly. But she was at the well that day. Now, wells were the Tinder of their day. Wells were the dating website. Wells were the dance halls of their day, where people would go perhaps to find a mate. Maybe it was a social place, but that's where you would sort of find someone, or you'd find someone looking for someone. But Rebecca goes to this well and she's not married. She's let her family down. This person who should have been married very quickly has not. She's let her family down. And so her name changes for one who is secure, almost, or tied up very quickly, to one who ties up cattle. She's let her family so down that the name actually becomes one who ties down cattle. Now, I need to stop there and say this is a male-dominated world where women are traded like pawns, women are traded like pieces of property. And this is not how God sees women. Okay? This is a sexist society. And thank goodness we've come leaps and bounds. We've got huge leaps and bounds to go still in on how women are protected and how women can speak in women's rights in our community. So Rebecca in this section is in a world that is male dominated. And so Rebecca, who's let down her family, I wonder if she was walking up to the well, thought her life would pan out like this. I wonder if there was a bit of disappointment. Maybe she's at the well and she's angry, she's bitter. Maybe she's walking with her head in shame and there's sorrow in every footstep. Maybe she's walking and she's thinking, another day wasted. It's almost like the Disney cartoons where the princess is waiting for Prince Charming to arrive. And as she's walking, she gets there and she sees not Prince Charming, but a servant. Another day wasted. God, my God, where are you? And I think they don't realize it, but the servant, this unnamed servant, and Rebecca have more in common than they realize. They both have lives that have not panned out the way they want them to. They both have these lives filled with pain and hurt and just, they're deflated. The servant who is a slave and now won't be free, has had one chance of freedom and now it's gone, who's angry, and Rebecca on the other side, who spent her whole life being told that she was going to be desirable for men and isn't, feels rejected not only by family but by men. That wealth of emotion, they share these same emotions, but the difference in the story is the way they respond. The unnamed servant, well, he responds with revenge. 20 to 30 gallons per camel times 10. No way is any woman going to live up to that expectation. Rebecca, on the other hand, responds not with bitterness. She has a lot to be bitter about. But she responds with hospitality. She responds by going beyond the call of duty. She responds in a way that the servant cannot repay her. When she gives to that servant water and then gives to the camels, the servant's not of her tribe. There's no way he can repay her. She knows that, but she gives generously. She doesn't give out of her bitterness. Rebecca lives out of a different place. Rebecca lives out of a place of caring, of compassion. She lives out of a place where she's felt like what it feels like to be rejected and then will not reject other people. She takes that experiences and turns it and says, I know what it is like to not feel love. I will love you. And so Rebecca does this. And in so doing, her life changes. And this slave's life, or this servant's life, changes. The writer of Genesis lays this whole story out and then repeats it. Why? Writing was an expensive task. It's not like today where you just print off. To write something was time consuming and it was expensive. Why just not say, the servant went to the house of Rebecca and said, and repeated the story that had just happened. you would have saved countless amounts of money, countless amounts of time. But the writer goes in depth to tell this love story of how Isaac and Rebekah were eventually to be wedded. And I think what the writer is trying to do by repeating the story is to show the depth of character of Rebekah. That with everything stacked against her, with her family's expectations that she didn't live up to, the expectations that this man places on her, that he knows way beyond what she should be doing. I think that Rebekah's character is worth repeating. It's worth using or wasting money to show the value of Rebekah's actions. And this servant is so shocked that it changes him. Friends, today we live in a world that is unfair. I deal with it pretty much day in and day out. That people tell me of things that have happened to them, or how people have placed expectations on them from a young age, or they've been robbed of something, of their freedom. Life is unfair. Life can be just so unforgiving, relentless. And it can leave you bitter. It can leave you seeking revenge. It can leave you setting expectations on other people that no one will achieve. Unrealistic expectations. It can leave you just hopeless. But at the same time, how we respond to that hopelessness says a lot about who we are and where we live from. We can either respond to that hopelessness, that brokenness, like the servant, or we can respond to this brokenness like Rebekah. Rebekah, despite all the wrong that was going on, all the unfairness, all the pain that she carried, she cared. She chose to be open to new experiences, to new life, to not close herself off, but to give. This doesn't mean that Rebekah did not live in pain. Being open and being, embracing things doesn't mean that you don't carry a level of pain. It means that, just like Rebekah, that you're trying to understand the world through that pain, trying to open yourself up, trying to make sure other people don't just experience that same pain. And it's in that living of opening up that God shows God's self to Rebekah, and in so doing shows God's self to the servant. Rebekah is a model on how we should live when faced with adversity and pain and struggle. We have the choice. Are we going to be the servant who lives out of pain and bitterness and all he wants is revenge, or are we going to be Rebekah? That's what's being faced in front of us. This is what the writer is trying to get to. And it's hard to be Rebekah. It's really, really hard to be open when life is unfair. Friends, as Christians, we believe that Jesus is a model of Rebecca as well. That Jesus lived an unfair life. Unfair in the sense that he was put to death. He was given the death penalty for something that he should not have done. That life for Jesus was the epitome of what it is to live a life that's unfair. But Jesus didn't shut Jesus off to the world. Jesus didn't say, you know what, I've been hurt. I've been betrayed. I don't want anything to do. No, Jesus opens up. Jesus opens himself up and says to people, feel my wounds. Be embraced. Feel love. Feel accepted. Jesus starts to live for others. We as people need to be careful. And we need to be careful because we can either be driven by our bitterness or our anger, or we can be driven by our love. But you can't be driven by both at the same time. You cannot be driven by love and bitterness. It's either love or bitterness. Can't be, and we need to make a choice. What will drive us? And I know that we'll all say love, or that we'll want to say love, but it's hard. It's hard. But I'm convinced that love changes people. In the story, Rebecca encounters the slave's bitterness and revenge. And the slave encounters Rebecca's love. Which one wins? Which one changes the situation? Which one offers life? Which one gives vitality to everyone around them? The one who chose love. Love has the power to change. So friends, this is the task before us. In the midst of all the pain that has happened in our life, in all the unfairness that happens, what place are we going to live from? Are we going to be the servant? Or are we going to be Rebecca? Are we going to be bitter? Or are we going to live from love? It's hard. It's hard to get to that place. So may you find your Rebecca. May you live from a place that brings life and vitality to all people and to you. May you not live from a place that seeks revenge, but rather a place that wants to bring forth life and hope. And may God hold you in God's hand as you discover what that means. Friends, if there's anything I can do to help, if you would like a conversation, if you'd like to chat, or if there's anything that just you want to get off your chest, I'm here for you and look forward to speaking to you soon. God bless.